Uber's poor customer service leads to the death of 6 people. What up, folks? Once again, this is your boy Tim with another ride-sharing video. Any of my long-term veteran drivers that's been driving and ride-sharing with Uber for a number of years may have remembered this story, but certainly will know what I'm talking about when I state poor customer service. Now, this comes out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. The story goes back a number of years. You're talking 2016. On February 20th, 2016, passenger Matt Mellon requested an Uber. Jason Dalton, this is the driver, took the life of 8 people, or better yet 6 people, shot 8 people. An Uber driver that shot 8 people, killing 6 of them. What happened was the passenger was in the vehicle and this driver was doing all sorts of wild shit. Listen to this story. The drive was terrifying. Dalton was running red lights, crashing into other vehicles, committing crimes, including kidnapping, false imprisoning, and battering Mellon. Mellon is the passenger. So this passenger ultimately was able to escape from the Uber driver's vehicle, immediately called 911, notified the authorities, and then he tried to call Uber's 24/7 response team. Now, this is back in 2016. For us veteran drivers, the long-term drivers, this is what I'm talking about. We all know back in those days, 2016, hell, even now, but certainly back in 2016, Uber was making a hell of a lot of promises based on nothing. So when they suggest that they have a 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a response team you could call that address safety issues, we all know the customer service for Uber and Lyft, by the way, Uber and Lyft, their customer service still sucks in 2023. But in 2006, the customer service from Uber was horrendous. The only way they wanted us contacting them at all was via a text message or an email. Even to this day, most of their customer service is often pre-written answers, sometimes having absolutely nothing to do with what the hell you're asking them about. In 2016, it almost all was like that. Nevertheless, the passenger has escaped from the vehicle after going through all of that shit, let the authorities know, and then began trying to contact Uber with the goal of getting this driver deactivated. I mean, after all, he's driving around, running in the car, scaring the hell out of a passenger. So the passenger is trying to report him. Now, according to the story, according to the lawsuit, because this passenger did settle, that's what this whole piece is about. This case has came to a head and this passenger has won a lawsuit with Uber. But according to the lawsuit, Uber did not ultimately deactivate this driver until the police arrested him after shooting 8 people, killing 6. So the passenger was ultimately never able to get in contact with Uber. Never able, not through any of the customer service avenues, was not able to reach Uber. Does that not sound familiar? Any of us in rideshare, and as I just stated, if you've been driving as a rideshare driver for a number of years, you know how difficult it is to reach anyone at Uber. You can send them a text message and hope and wait, but actually getting a live individual in 2016 was nothing short of impossible. Anyhow, according to the actual article in the lawsuit, Uber had claimed that their 24/7 response team was dedicated to investigating safety issues. And in the lawsuit, they alleged that because the passenger was not able to get in contact with that whole claim was a lie. So Uber did settle out of court with this passenger. The passenger was originally asking for $1.2 million. Now, neither one of these folks, the passenger or Uber, is responding to any of the calls from the media. So we don't know what the lawsuit was settled for. They did state that in the lawsuit settlement, both parties had to pay their own legal fees, which that happens. I mean, if you file a lawsuit to some of these ambulance chasers, for the most part, they take a third of what they get for you. So you are paying your own legal fees, but they don't tell you what the actual number is. They just tell you that this guy was originally asking for $1.2 million. In my opinion, all of the victims, the family for all of the victims, should also sue. Because if someone was trying to warn Uber that they had a potential, mass killer on the loose, and they could not be reached after promising that they had a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week response team, they should be held accountable for all of these deaths. Now, I don't know if that has happened or not, but I have not heard where Uber had to pay a massive payout in the city of Kalamazoo, Michigan. They should have. If you got an Uber driver rolling around popping people off. Now, this is also where a huge difference comes from being an employee versus being an independent contractor. If you are an employee of Uber, just like a FedEx employee, an Amazon employee, or a UPS employee, and you go around taking lives, the company is going to be 100% responsible for that. You're doing it while in the course of the job. Now, in this case, Uber can say, well, it's not one of our employees, it's an independent contractor. But if they're using the damn calls that are coming from the app, and I haven't been able to tell or not if the driver was actually responding to pings from Uber, actual trips, and taking out passengers or just random strangers. I do believe these were passengers, though. He was responding to trips and popping people on the trip. The only way this guy has access to these people is through Uber. Uber was literally sending him victims. How can they not be responsible for this? Certainly if they are somebody's out there actively trying to warn them, you got a really bad guy out there that is taking trips and taking out the passengers in the most awful of ways. So Uber should be responsible for this. Anyhow, the driver, Jason Dalton, he did get life in prison as of February 2019, so he will be spending the rest of his life in prison. The passenger, Matt Mellon, we don't know what his out-of-court settlement, what Uber was, but I do hope that all of those victims, the ones that are deceased, their families, and the ones that are still alive, the victims themselves, hopefully all of them have received a significant settlement from Uber. Because you can't promise that you have a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day response team that addresses safety issues that can't be reached. That's just a flat-out lie. You are promising passengers some measure of safety that you're not delivering on. You're telling this to passengers because we want to make this business sound as though it's better, safer, more efficient than the taxi business. But you can't make promises that aren't real. You're collecting money from people that may be using your business based on what you're telling them. If something goes wrong, I can call and I feel safer riding in an Uber than a taxi. But you feel safer based on shit that's not real. They don't have a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day response team. Now in 2023, to my current drivers, have you ever tried to reach out to Uber or Lyft in a quick rush, in an emergency? Not something where you can text them and you can afford to wait until the next day, next week or whatever till they respond. Have you had to reach out to them for something that you needed an immediate response? If so, what was the answer time? How quick were you able to get in contact with them? Because I'm trying to find out in 2023, some 7 years later, is what this guy went through possible that somebody could go through today? If you really need to get in contact with Uber or Lyft in this case, because Lyft is now just as big down there, it's the second biggest company. But if you really needed to get in contact with Uber or Lyft and time was of the essence, how certain are you could get through to a human being that would address the actual issue you're discussing? Let me know in the comments. As always, it's your boy Tim. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.